Welcome to the Barrett channel. As some of you will already know, especially if you've watched the trailer, we are setting up a live stream event with 3 other channels, that being Daniel Dumbrill, Gweilo 60 and Alex from Reforterfy Media. And yesterday we recorded our first show. We decided to do a recorded one before we go live, just to iron out any bumps and things in the road. And we've now done that. So I'm now going to play the recording that we've done. And what would be great is if at the end of the recording you could leave comments what you thought. And it would also be good to know some of the things you would like us to talk about when we do start the live streams. The live stream should be starting within the next 1 to 2 weeks, so keep an eye on our community tab on our page so you know the times. I will also leave down below the links to the other 3 guys' channels, so check those out if you're not already subscribed to them. I know most of you already do watch those channels. But anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.
Okay. What's up, guys? Welcome. Hold on a second. What's it called again?
Let's talk China.
The Barrett channel.
You don't have to cut that out. You don't have to cut that out. It's okay. Welcome to Let's Talk China, our first edition before we do our live stream. And I've, for some reason, been given the honor of introducing the series. But how about we start with introducing ourselves? Because we're kind of new to each other. We're not very familiar with each other. So how about we say a little bit about where we're from? And maybe, Kirk, start with you.
Okay, well, I'm Gweilo 60. Well, actually, I'm Kirk Absalon from Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, northern Saskatchewan. But I live in Nanning City, and I'm here to have fun with everybody else.
Cool. Yeah. And Lee?
Okay, so I'm Lee from the Barrett channel, which is, well, I'm half of the Barrett channel. My son is the other half. I'm from England in the UK, and I've been living full-time in China for about 10 years with about sort of 2 years gap in between.
Cool. Yeah. Alex?
I'm Alex from Reforterfy Media, Canadian born and raised, but exiled out of Canada in the mid-90s. Moved to Europe and then bounced over to Asia about 7 years ago, and been focusing a lot on China. Been in and out of China now that I've got my 10-year visa, and that's going to be my focus for the next 5 years. And back to you, Daniel.
Cool.
Well, welcome everybody.
I didn't introduce myself yet.
You didn't. That's what we're waiting for.
Yeah.
So I was actually born in the UK, in London, East End, which you probably didn't know.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I was in Whitechapel Hospital, so technically a Cockney.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but when I was 5 years old, moved to Canada, and grew up in Ontario. Now I'm in China for 12 years. So what do you want to talk about? This is going to be random. We didn't plan anything, so I guess it's going to be a little bit.
I got a couple questions.
Yeah, I guess we'll call it open mic, and we all know that Gweilo 60 just loves to talk.
He does. Do you guys have any drinks on hand?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I'm drinking big bottles of Chang beer.
Oh, okay. This is a little bit stronger. This is a stout. I'm drinking one of our stouts. I think it's 8 or 9% alcohol.
Oh, see,
So
we gotta come visit you.
I've got the Jack Daniels with a Coke. Yeah.
Yeah.
A
Okay.
little bit of a party going on down there in Shenzhen, huh?
Alex,
Absolutely.
What are you drinking?
Baby duck.
Well, I think okay. Let's
G&T, man. It's a G&T. It's
Let's give Alex
G&T.
a break, and you can go to the fridge and go get a beer or something.
You forgot you drank them all when you stayed with me.
Yeah, but you've had lots of time. We've been gone for like 10 days. You've had lots of time to go get more.
I have.
What made me to get it for you?
Yes, I enjoyed some beers last night as well. Maybe too many.
You said you had some questions. Yeah.
Daniel, you run like 2 different businesses, an export business and a brew pub. I love you because you run a brew pub, and I got to come visit you one of these days. But how does this coronavirus, everything shut down, nobody out, affect you? And not only just affect your brew pub, but affect the export business that you do. Like there's no ships leaving, there's nobody in the factories making stuff. And then they've got this new 600 policies that the Chinese government brought in that, deferring taxes, deferring bank payments because the government sort of backs the banks, to all of these different policies. How does that impact you?
So obviously the coronavirus, in terms of we've stayed shut for quite a long time. This is the first day we've opened, and we're only allowed to kind of do delivery and takeaway. Actually, our front entrance, I don't know if you can see it, we've got something blocking it there, and I can't orient my finger on that screen. And they basically have to wait at the door, and we do a takeaway for them. But even now, I guess people are just starting to get aware that we're open for this business, and it's pretty slow even today. But there's stories all across Shenzhen, and I'm sure across China, people kind of on the brink of bankruptcy because of this. I would imagine the policies still rely on a lot of cooperation from everybody, because one of the policies also was that the companies still need to pay their staff their full salary. But I already know of many companies who aren't doing that. They just can't do it.
Sure.
And so with my landlord, he hasn't said anything also yet about any rent-free period. And I've asked him. And it's to the point, I'm not only paying rent for the shop, I'm paying rent for storage rooms, which are in the parking garage here. And the parking garage is blocked off, so I can't even get to my storage room. So even more so, I'm paying for a storage room that I don't even have access to. So I think they should do something, but they haven't made any commitments. So
I think they've done something. If you own government or if you rent government-owned property, I think there's some rent-free period there, but that's only if it's like government properties.
Yeah.
Not private landlord stuff.
So what you're saying, Daniel, is you've turned your brew pub into a cold wine and beer store.
Right. I've turned it into my personal beer shop.
Well, no, in Canada they have cold wine and beer stores where that's where you go to buy your booze.
Is that what it's called? We just have the LCBO. We just have the LCBO in Ontario.
Well, that's what they used to call it, but now it's cold wine and beer store. So you have to go there and you buy your stuff and you take it home and drink it because it's too expensive to drink in the bar.
I do feel Shenzhen is starting to slowly get back to some normality. I was over in Shenzhen Bay yesterday in Mixed Sea, and it was noticeably busier than it had been for a few weeks. There was people at. In fact, we were actually allowed to sit in Starbucks. It was quite funny because they had one table, one chair, then about a meter, another table, one chair. And I went in there with my son. We went in together, but they wouldn't let us sit together. He had to sit here, and I had to sit like 6 feet away at another chair. So they got these like odd chairs dotted around inside Starbucks. They were doing a lot of takeaway business. But
so even the people you go in with, you have to sit separately from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then they got a little bit annoyed with us because I took my mask off to drink some coffee and started talking to Oliver, and the guy came and said, no, if you're talking to him, you need to put your mask back on. So it's and then there's another bit. We went to buy a burger at Mixed Sea, and we ordered these burgers, and we couldn't sit in. So we thought, that's no problem. We'll go and sit on the wall over here and eat them. And they wouldn't let us sit anywhere within the Mixed Sea complex to eat the burger. We ended up going out of Mixed Sea complex, sitting on a set of steps near the road to eat our burgers. So I think it's, I think it's sometimes you get these security guards who are sort of a bit, they're above their level, or so it's
they just don't know.
Yeah.
They overreact, and I'm sorry because I've been calling like Oliver. I've been calling him Oli because
it's Oli. He prefers Oli.
Oh, does he? Because
yeah.
My ancestors are Norwegian, so Oli. I am Oli. He is Sven. Yeah. But I saw Oli, not Oliver. I didn't even think Oliver.
Yeah, he doesn't like being called Oliver. No way.
Well, yeah, but you see, my dad called me Harold because his name is Harold, and I don't like that either. So I can understand where he's coming from. Hey, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Yeah, I also got another little story about going out yesterday, and this triggered by what Daniel was saying today about the government here sort of being a bit maybe willy-nilly about letting people come back in. So I goes to get on the metro yesterday, right? I got a 100 ml bottle of hand sanitizer, and they wouldn't let me take it on the metro. They were adamant I couldn't because it contained some level of alcohol. and the rules are you can't. And what I find bizarre about that is surely when they're trying to stop a virus, the risk of that being an issue from a flammability point of view is far less than what the issue would be if I was spreading the virus because I can't clean my hands after touching rails and things on the metro. And I thought that I had to go home and take the stuff home and then go back to the metro station, which I found quite bizarre.
You know, yeah, if they knew, I mean, Kirk and I, they probably wouldn't let us on the subway because as Canadians, I mean, also you, Alex, sometimes we're 70% alcohol after we're done at the bar, aren't we?
But actually,
Yeah.
I before I left China, I've always, we were going down to the Mixie to eat supper with friends, and I had a bottle of brandy. Well, actually, it was a mixed bottle of brandy in one of my little water bottles, and I'm going in. They said, no, you can't take that on. And so because it could be anything. So I take a drink of it and then, okay, you can go now.
Wow.
Can't do that with hand sanitizer.
Well, but the idea was, well, we don't know what it is. Well, it's drinkable. Okay, it's okay. Yeah. But this is in Nanning. Nanning is a little bit more backwards in most places.
Actually, though, international airports, they do that too. If you go through like a baby sippy cup or something like that, or they get you to take a little sip of it, and then you're fine. So yeah.
But you see with the situation, Lee, and the examples that you guys have given me about having to take back some hand sanitizer, not being able to talk without the mask on. I mean, we can at least say that there is a protocol in place. We can at least say that people are following the protocol and they're doing everything that they can to make sure that this is followed so that, they try to prevent this outbreak. But can you imagine trying to implement something like that in Australia, United Kingdom, Canada, or the US?
Yeah.
Would everybody be like you, walk home, take it home, or would there be, we'll call it altercations?
Oh, absolutely. I think in the US, if something where they'd be shooting each other to get stuff there, it'd be absolute madness, wouldn't it, in certain states of the US?
Well, Chicago comes to mind. All of those guys are nuts. But yeah, that's basically in every Western country, even Canada. You try to tell a Canadian, no, you got to stay there for 14 days, boy. And they're going to say, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're dealing with
civil rights. No.
Oh, in the UK, they had to pass like a new emergency law because when they repatriated some of those people from Wuhan, one of the guys that was in quarantine, he threatened to walk, and we had no law that the authorities could stop him from doing that. So they quickly passed a new law to stop him leaving quarantine.
In northern Saskatchewan, we just taser the bastard. No, seriously. He's on the ground, cuff him, and throw him back into his cell. So what do you guys think about this Iran thing? You've got, it was 38 or 40 some cases, but there's 13 dead people.
And today they've got like 50 that have recovered. It's
already.
I don't know. They're all over the place.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw the news, and I don't know how true this is. I just received it before this video, but they're saying that the strain that was tested in Iran is completely different from.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't originate even in China. Now, again, I don't know. I've constantly seen a stream of conspiracy theories on my channel.
Washington D.C.
Yeah, I have too. Yeah,
I've tried
Chinese scientists. Yeah, I've done some research on some of the early patients.
Yeah.
Can you see the anti-China haters? If we say something like this, they will rip us a new asshole. You know what I mean? Like it will be.
I don't usually tackle it. Yeah, I don't usually tackle it because you know what? I mean, there's been a lot of people who have constantly said, well, look at the number of flu deaths in the U.S. this year. It's way higher than usual. People are saying that if it originated in the U.S., then people wouldn't have even been testing it for it, so they wouldn't even know. But I take them just as all conspiracy theories for now, because you can just go down a deep rabbit hole with that, and you can get into all kinds of things. So I take it for face value,
Sure, yeah.
I accept that it appears like it originated in Wuhan, but there's a lot of people out there that are definitely convinced otherwise.
No.
Oh,
Well,
it's
actually,
biowarfare.
there has been some science. It's to do with these markers in the samples they've taken. Some of these markers didn't appear in people from Wuhan, but they appeared in people like Kirk says that had come from Washington and Shenzhen. These two places have different markers to these people in Wuhan in the whatever it is, the DNA or the virus
RNA
makeup.
I
And
think it's the DNA.
you know,
yeah.
so that there is something. And obviously the longer time goes on, the more they're going to find out about this virus. But I think the Iran thing's very interesting. Because like Daniel says, it is a completely different strain apparently, and it was like they had no cases. All of a sudden they had deaths and quite a few cases. And one interesting thing is Hom, where it originated. It's only apparently 5 million people in Hom, but they have something like 15 to 20 million visitors a year because it's sort of a Muslim pilgrimage thing. So they have a huge amount of travelers to and from Iran simply because of this. You know, you divide 20 million into weeks of a year, and it's a huge amount of people that are traveling backwards and forwards.
Yeah, I think, you know, with what I've seen on the news and stuff, and I take this with a grain of salt, but I want to go back to, you know, this whole situation in general. My sister works in a lab in Canada that tests babies for diseases to save them.
Saskatchewan?
Yes, and she had said to me weeks ago. She said, "Look at you know, the numbers that came out from the CDC in the United States. Anywhere from 11 to 17 million people die of the flu. Even the Commander-in-Chief Donald Trump yesterday was actually saying the same numbers that I was spitting out to some of my recent online chats." And the people don't really want to.
That's not something to be proud of, by the way.
No, it really is. That's what I was thinking too.
I said that's not something to be proud of, by the way.
Well, anyway, sorry, I'm just saying that in some sense, he's trying to say to the public, which I've been trying to say to the public, let's do a comparison here against the numbers, and let's compare the flu numbers to the current numbers. Now you're going to get people saying, but it's different, but it's different, but it's different. So when I was having this one-on-one debate with a lady that was in California, she just said, borders should be closed. Nobody should be allowed in the United States of America. Basta, end off. And I said, so then what has America done with what the United States done with the flu season? Have they shut the borders down from the flu? And she says, oh, but we know how to contain this. And we know how to prepare for this. And I said, how? She says, well, we take flu shots, but we don't want the government to make us take these flu shots. We want to be able to take them on our own. And this flu shot's bad. And she was kind of like one of those
anti-vaxxer.
She was an anti-vaxxer. Okay, no problem. So then she pushed forward on this, but we know how to contain this flu. I said, well, then why is there 50,000 people still dying? And she said, well, it's because, you know, that's what the flu is. Well, we interviewed the doctor in Wuhan yesterday, Kurt and I, right from the hospital. And the way
it was real. I know this guy personally.
So when we were speaking to him, he once again reassured us by saying, look, the delicate ages of 70 and 80, if they were hit with the flu virus or the coronavirus, they're under massive attack, and it's either going to be either or. If they get one of the other, it's going to be, you know, could be catastrophic.
It's kind of like a threshold thing, isn't it? It's like because it's something we know, it doesn't matter how many people die of it.
Sure,
it's something we don't know, and this is the thing. When people kind of criticize China, also, they don't have a threshold. Like they have this thing that just says, they say China bad. And they don't have a threshold where they say, okay, after so many hundreds of millions of people have been removed from poverty, after this kind of an infrastructure development, after this kind of a development from China, they don't have a threshold where they all of a sudden say, well, hold on a second, let me think about this differently. They've got these black and white kind of lines that they draw in their mind.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah, whether
Daniel,
it's
I think that's been ingrained in our minds through education over the years. Communism is bad. both Russia and China, Cuba for sure, and you go back 100 years, and there was head taxes, there was exclusion acts, there was everything to keep that evil yellow fever out of places like Canada and the United States and Great Britain and places like that, where you're just seeing another form of it now that is as racist and screwed up as it was, because you've got these bullies like Trump that get to the top because there's all these uneducated 3T bad haircut freaking hillbillies, one vote, one person type thing. How do you control something like that? That's my opinion. You guys might not think that way.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I take a little bit more carefully too, because there are. I listen to both kind of left-wing and right-wing media, and there's a lot of really highly educated, obviously right-wingers who voted for Trump also. And the thing that pushed them even more over to that side was by saying those kinds of things, just saying, oh, like Hillary Clinton did, the basket of deplorables, and people who think like that are completely, so I'm a little bit more careful with that, but I know what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, there are good Republicans. I met one once. I'm kidding. If I was in America, I would be a Republican, but I wouldn't be that far to the right. There's levels of right and left in any political system, but the idea that they have that at the pinnacle of the United States government right now. Ooh, that's a scary fucking thing for the Canadian, the Canadian population being so close and saying, "Oh, this used to be our big brother." Now, a lot of people are saying, "Yeah, I don't much like my big brother anymore."
Yeah.
Well, I mean, my take on this is, can you imagine somebody else at the helm of the United States there right now? I think
Bernie Sanders?
No. I mean, his conversation to the public yesterday, Daniel, you made that comparison, but he came out and he says, wait a second here. The Democrats went after him and said, you cut the budget for the CDC. He cut the budget that was massively inflated, but they're still getting more money than what they got during, the Democratic side. But you got to take away from this guy. And here's how I view him in power down there. I don't look at him as a politician, and I never can look at him as a politician. I look at him as a businessman, and he has this swamp that he knows that he has all this bureaucratic tape that he's got to get through. Now, when this happens, which it is happening right now, they're being, the general investment public thought it was immune to grounding 80,000 flights a day on the world. They felt it was immune to seeing cargo ships sit in the ports in Singapore and Shenzhen. They felt that their economy was immune to it. Now, as of Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, even Thursday, I'm looking at the futures right now. They ain't looking good either. Mm-hmm. So they have the guy in there that I think is the guy that, if you're going to go through this crisis, is going to be able to navigate it through. He's going to say, look, we're going to have to do some policies like China's going to do. We're going to need the Fed to come in here, and we're going to have to go zero rates for 2 years because our economy is about to get smoked. We're going to have to come through and deregulate 1,000 things. We're going to have to, and that's where I see he has taken off the political hat, and he's put on the hat of, hey, he runs America like a company, not a country, it's different.
Yeah, I think there are some overlapping things that would add concern, like, a lot of people accuse him of being anti-science, or, you can see him wanting to cut the CDC budget by 16%. However, when it's all said and done, even with those concerns, I gotta be honest, if there was some sort of a global crisis, I'd be more comfortable with him as my leader than I would Justin Trudeau.
Oh, no shit. Sherlock. Like Justin Trudeau, like this guy, what is he, a part-time drama teacher that's never finished anything in his life, a feminist, and he grew a beard just so he could look older.
I can't believe he got. I can't believe he won again. I can't believe. And this is where you just.
Well,
you just,
because Scheer is an idiot.
Well,
Hey, if they had Peter MacKay in there, not a problem. If they anybody else, but like, okay, he's from Regina. It's a Saskatchewan boy. I like Scheer, but he's not a leader. He's just not.
Yeah, but this is generally the problem with a lot of Western politics. Is pretty much anybody can get into the top jobs, and that's something which is very different here. You know, you look at top politicians here. They've done 30 years of kind of service, haven't they? You know, they sort of serve their apprenticeship. Whereas a lot of Western politicians, it's really who they're connected to. I guess there's a little bit of that in China as well, but pretty much, you know, what I find unbelievable is out of all the people in the States, it came down to Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Those two people, all of the smart people that could be, you know, running for that job, because it all boils down at the end of the day to money. You know, that is a massive thing.
Yeah, it does and it doesn't.
Same thing in Canada. Money.
Most of the Western countries, it's about money, you know.
Alex disagrees. I'm curious. What do you?
Okay, you know, it's not helping Bloomberg right now, and he's got all the money in the world to help his policy. Is, you know, he said he would go for almost broke to try to be the president. It's not working.
And when you have a government in Canada that allows anarchists to stop the trains and stop the roads and stop all this stuff, and the government, true dope, he's an idiot, says, oh, well, we have to talk to these people. These people are they have no political position in Canada. They don't speak for anybody except for outside interests. When you get to that position in a country, you know, how would that go over in China? Would Xi Jinping and his boys say, "Oh, that's okay. We'll go talk to these guys"? No. What do you think they would do? They would throw their ass in jail. They wouldn't do it again, because jail is hell in China.
There's so many things. There's so many things. Okay, you finish? Yeah.
Well, no, but see, jail is hell in China, and it's not a place where you get a free television, you get a free bed, all the food you want to eat, you got a gym, and all this other stuff. When you go to China jail, you get treated like shit. You get shitty food, and you do not want to go back there ever again.
I got a bunch of things I got to address here. Are you finished or no? You gotta go. You keep going. If you gotta
keep going. You go. You know what I'm saying. No. Like,
so yeah. Well, there's a few things. So one, in terms of infrastructure and the way the political system works. Eric Lee, I don't know if you've seen Eric Lee do his talk on how the political system works in China, and you were absolutely right. In terms of Lee, in terms of people slowly working their way up and having to prove themselves, you know, and then in the West, especially in America, you've got lobbyist groups, obviously, that back people and pay a lot of money to get these people elected, and you have to ask yourself, what kind of a return on investment are these people expecting? And you end up having them work.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of people that show that, but. I got to say something against. In terms of dynasties, you're talking about, Alex. The thing that people will say to somebody like us who points that out, they'll say, well, what about Xi Jinping? Xi Jinping's removed the term limits, right? And he's in power. And that's something I struggled with in the beginning. And it was back when, because I was not really necessarily pro-China or anti-China, but I consumed a lot of anti-China content. And when it was clear that he wasn't looking for a replacement, I was the one sharing those, like the Financial Times articles where they said Emperor Xi, and they had him in emperor clothes and stuff like that. And I said, this is messed up. But the thing is what you got to look at and for me, opening this bar and seeing what's happening in China, there's a lot of positive that's happening. And he has this war on corruption, which he's kind of fighting right now. And there's a massive difference when I first arrived here in 2008 compared to now. And if he changed right now, while he's in the middle of this war on corruption, there's a very high chance that it would go back. It would get reset. And there are provisions in place for Western governments that when they are fighting a war, that they can continue on for a certain period of time. I don't know if he's expecting to continue on forever. I hope not. But I see why he's got to do this now. And then if you look at the trade war also, These guys can just wait it out. They can wait until Trump is done. If Trump is too hard a nut to crack, they'll just wait. They'll wait till the next year.
It's only 8 years.
China are all about playing the long game. They don't care about a very short termist. They much more see the longer game. Absolutely.
Yeah,
and I think have 50-year terms. And so their understanding.
Right, and so I think it's really important that he finishes what he's got to do here, and then pass the torch. But the one thing I want to address too is in terms of Kurt, is some of your perceptions about what would they do if people were blocking roads and stuff like that. I think that's a little bit off because here in Guangdong we had some protests not too long ago. It was in November or December, where they were protesting. I think it was in Maoming. They were protesting a crematorium. And it got really violent. People. That
will be the one where they're burning hundreds of bodies a day, 24 hours a day, right?
Yeah. It's coincidental that we're talking about that. But what they ended up doing was finally the government said, okay, and they canceled it and they gave everybody amnesty, even the ones who got like a little bit, violent.
Okay, Daniel, but that's a little bit different than trying to shut down the economic powerhouse of a whole country. Your trains are shut down. They shut down bridges. They shut down border crossings and stuff because a small minority of anarchists say, well, this is our agenda and we don't want this going on in Canada. They don't care about what the general public wants. They only care about what they want. So I can understand in China that these small things where you have disagreements, that's fine. But when you're actually changing the economic outcome of a whole country by doing stuff like this, would China put up with that? Absolutely not.
Nobody would actually. Canada's a special place in that regard because if you look at, even in Hong Kong, what they did, like they kind of cut off major arteries of roads. They were lighting police on fire. They acid burned them. They bricked a man to death. They lit a man on fire. And if they blocked the roads like they did in Hong Kong, or they blocked the main airport or the only airport, in the U.S. they wouldn't have accepted that either. So in that regard, Canada's a little bit. Canada's quite soft because that's not a matter of just saying China would not accept that. There's a lot of other places that wouldn't accept that in that regard.
Canada has accepted it.
Yeah.
The Canadian government has accepted it. They say, oh, well, we have to have dialogue with these people. That makes no sense.
Yeah, well,
China would say no.
I get the focus on Canada. We're such a minor player on the world stage. And I think what's got us into this, definitely my focus on China is that, I like to bet on a winner. And when you see and you arrive to the shores of China for the first time, which I did back in 2002, I was, walking the back streets of Shenzhen at the time, and I was with my wife, and we were at a kind of like a consumer electronics show, and we were buying some stuff for our online business because we do purchasing out of China every day. And I started to see, the boys packing all the equipment in the back alleys and running it. And I turned to her and I said, we are in trouble here, in the West. Look at the magnitude of this production. Look at how fast it's being brought to the consumer. We cannot compete with this. And, I came back and I really started to focus a lot on China. And of course, members of my family, like, are you crazy? What are you doing? What are you going to China? It's communist. Careful, you're not going to get thrown in jail. The typical things. They have nets outside the building to catch people from committing suicide, and all these wonderful stories.
I think that's in Japan.
And so and I went past Foxconn's warehouse there, and I said, this isn't true. And I was trying to convince my mother, who it's pretty hard to convince. And I said, no, Mom, what I'm seeing here is not what you're reading. And the more I kept going back to China, the more I was getting annoyed to come back into the Western countries because I was continually defending, hey guys, you should see this is amazing infrastructure. They got amazing trains. Oh, but how many? We heard thousands of people died making these trains. Okay, so then you'd switch the topic on. Well, they got the best airports in the world. Well, if they pay, that's because they're paying everybody $20 a month. Just outrageous stuff. So then you fast forward to 2020. And the stereotypes still exist. You'll talk with somebody. It's like, well, the reason why it's cheap Chinese product. And I said, well, do you have an iPhone? Yeah. Is it cheap? No. Well, it's it's made in China. Yeah. Well, Apple. Well, do you know that Apple's margins are so huge that you're blaming China for making an item relatively decent price that then the profits wind up on the shores of the United States, and now so who are you blaming here? You're blaming the Chinese for making a product so that Apple can make a 70% margin on it and then pump up their balance sheets. And hey, that's commerce to me. That's a win-win. What I'm trying to say to these people is, if you're an American, what on earth are you doing, shutting your borders to China, closing your ports to China, closing your commerce to China? Shame on you. Look what's happening. You're getting smacked on the financial market now like there's no tomorrow. These countries are so connected, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's the money that's being transferred back and forth. And then at the end of the day, when we get a nation that has helped build our electronic sector, whether it's Qualcomm or even some of the mobile networks, we get angry that some of these hardworking Chinese people want to come to our country to buy a house, just like Brits do in the south of France or like they do in Spain. They want to buy a house outside of their country. They want to take that, all that money that they've made, they've worked hard for, and invest it outside of the country, just like other Westerners do. And then we blame them for driving up the real estate prices. Now, isn't this ironic? How are so many people that are making $20 to $60 a month managing to buy all these wonderful properties around the world, invest in it, and sit on it? Then you'll get people, yeah, well, our neighborhood is empty with empty homes because they don't come here often. Are they paying their property tax? Yes, they are. Are they bringing their kids to go into school if they're not in their house? Well, no, they're not going. They're not paying. They're paying their tax, but it's sad. It's an empty street. But they're helping you fund your tax system, and they're not even there using the garbage, disposal and stuff like that. So if somebody just took the time to maybe take 10 hours a year in the Western school systems, instead of having 12 hours a month on gender studies, we put it on international studies on what e-commerce is and what these countries are. Maybe our society would have a chance to understand on what on earth is going on in this world. Except,
but Alex, if they didn't have gender studies, I wouldn't know what to identify as.
Every time I go back to the UK, all the time I grew up, most of the images of China I saw on the TV were Beijing, people wearing the grey clothes, riding around on bicycles, right? And it is only perhaps in the last maybe 5 to 8 years that has changed. Now you get pictures of Shanghai. But I'm always amazed. I'll go back to the UK, and when I talk to people, all the people I talk to, oh yeah, China this, and they do this, and this is what it's like, and this is what it's like. All right, hang on a minute. How many times have you been to China? Oh no, I've never been, but I know all about it. And they think they know more about it than somebody who's like spent 8 years there, because it's so ingrained into their heads of what they've been pushed from the media for year after year after year. And it's so difficult to change their mind. My parents are the same. They're starting to open up a little now because I show them so many videos and pictures and stuff like that. Ollie's other grandmother, not my mother, when he spoke to them when he first moved, he says, oh, so they have supermarkets in China, do they? Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know they had supermarkets in China. And this is like a woman who's like 70 years old, and because all her life she's been pushed these images that they're poor people who ride bicycles, and it's so difficult to change that mentality of those Western people,
Well, not only that, but you see, I see stuff on Facebook every day where the Chinese government is banning the sale of or anything to do with wild animals. And I look at this as sort of like a slap in the face, because I come from Saskatchewan, where we go hunting and we go fishing. So
You go out shooting, right?
Shooting a deer, an elk, a moose, hanging it in your garage, wild animals, dressing it, and cutting it up and making that your main focus for food for the next 6 months is a regular thing in Canada. And I get this from my Canadian friends that I grew up with. So I call them on it, and then they call me on it, and they say, well, geez, how dare you talk to me like this?
Wow.
These things are.
In Australia too. I mean, Australia. My buddies there of Russian descent. They go out in the outback once in a while, or wherever it is, and they go kangaroo hunting, and they barbecue up the kangaroo, and that's an important thing. Yeah.
I bet you that would taste good, eh? We should go do that for a weekend. Kangaroo hunting, barbecue, beer drinking. We'll take beer from the brew pub.
Well, yeah, I think here's the biggest thing that I'm more concerned about now. China's got a massive image problem now. And, unfortunately, it's because of this virus that has been spewing onto the media for...
And two people who are in Canada, they don't help the situation too. But sorry, not Canada, California. Those two Californian circus performers.
The California clowns. Yeah, the California clowns. Well, you see, I think.
But how do we get past this? How did we get past this now? I mean, we're at a crossroads now.
People are just. You know what? The thing is if it wasn't this, it would be something else. They're always going to find something to villainize China on, and it really affects you. You know what? I mean, when I first came to China. Even the first 5 or 6 years I was here, I was living here. I was enjoying my life. I was living in the village areas of Shenzhen, 7th floor, no elevator. The first 2 years I lived here, I didn't even have air conditioning. So I roughed it the first couple of years. And you can imagine.
Tougher than me, man.
Yeah, and just a fan. I had a fan. And I've seen all parts of China, and I loved it. But I was still kind of anti-China. I was still very kind of against the government. And my wife's family. So my wife is Chinese, as you guys know. They were affected by the whole kind of growing up. They had a really rough situation. My father-in-law, he was almost labeled as a counter-revolutionary or whatever it was when he spent years raising this pig and selling it, got a little bit of money, and the other villagers got jealous, and so they were affected by the system. It was terrible here. And even him, I can't convince them. When I was looking at this anti-China content like Ai Weiwei's Nothing to Envy or whatever it is, all these kind of anti-China documentaries, I would show it to them. Or there's another movie, To Live, about the Cultural Revolution. Really beautiful movie. And I showed that to my father-in-law, and he had to stop halfway through, and he couldn't finish it. He said, "This is too real," and he's not an emotional guy, and he just couldn't finish it. And even with all of that, they still love their country and they still love everything. Yes, and I was always like, man, these guys are really brainwashed. And then it took me 6 years of actually living here to finally say, oh shit, maybe I'm the one who's brainwashed. Maybe it's me who's brainwashed. So it took me, and I think I'm pretty open-minded. I think I like to think about things from different angles. It even took me 6 years of living in China to all of a sudden change my mind on it. And so for you to say, what does it take to change somebody's mind overseas? Oh man, that's a tough one.
It's a big ask. I mean, you see all the time here that in the comments, the Chinese people say, look, it's not the people and the government, we're one. That's how they see it. They see we work together, and they'll often say, well, anybody can, you take your exams, you can become part of the government. So they don't see it here as, oh, that's our government and this is the people. They see it as one. And I honestly believe here that the government works most of the time in the best interest of the people. But I don't believe that is the case. Certainly in the UK, the government works in the best interest of getting themselves re-elected after 4 or 5 years. And that's why we don't get anything done. You just look at the last 3 years of Brexit, right? What a mess, because you've got these politicians. Now, these politicians came from constituencies, right, who voted 60-70% to leave the EU. Yet they were trying to stop Brexit. Hang on a minute. You haven't been voted, to put your own opinions. You've been voted by the people to represent the people, but they didn't. It was all about, what we want. And it was just and you don't get that here. Like the UK, we've been talking about having a high-speed train for 12 years. They haven't laid a metre of track yet because one government gets in, oh yeah, we want it. The next government goes, oh no, we're going to have an inquiry into it. Then you get all the liberals going, we don't want it by our house. We don't want it splitting our view. And it goes on and on and on.
Same thing with Toronto. The train in Toronto? The train from downtown Toronto to the airport, they were talking about for 25 years or 30 years before they broke ground.
They just never get anything achieved,
because the politicians in the Western world, they have a personal opinion, and that's what they go with.
Yeah.
In China, they have a government opinion, and that's what they have to go with. And that's why things move so well over here. Just because the whole country is moving in the same direction. It's not based on what you think or what I think. It's what's based on what the whole country thinks. Daniel, how much is your best beer on the house for like a liter?
Oh, our best beer, our most expensive beer?
Yeah.
We have it's not cheap. We use pretty good ingredients. The most expensive one.
You have to look.
I have to look. 280 RMB for 2 liters. Whoa. So it's expensive. It's all imported ingredients.
What's your cheapest beer?
Cheapest.
Yeah, that's the real one. That doesn't make you sick.
So Daniel, are most of your customers expats or Chinese, or is there a mix?
90. So most foreigners who open up businesses here, they have mostly foreign customers, but ours is 95% Chinese.
Oh wow.
Okay. So what is the cheapest beer?
It's like 200 or something.
It's too expensive for you, Kirk.
So no, just a second here. I
Beer's on me when you guys come.
So if we were to show up, all the other 3 of us were to show up at your bar, would you charge us for the beer, or could we just do this like on a
beer's on me? Beer's on me.
A free tab.
As long as you guys behave. As long as you guys behave, it's,
we can't guarantee that.
Daniel, how long can the beer that you've produced and stuff stay bottled?
So,
I mean, it's
so it depends on the type of beer. We put all of our beers in kegs. So there's a few things that will make beer go bad. One is obviously time. One is temperature. So we keep all of our beer in cold rooms after we keg them off. One is UV, but UV doesn't get into our stainless steel kegs, and the other is oxygen. And so with oxygen, we purge our kegs 3 or 4 times with CO2 before we fill it. So we have pretty good control of our oxygen levels. And then depending on the beer type, hops, and we have some pretty hoppy beers here. Hops is a natural preservative. It acts as a natural preservative. So some of our more hoppy beers, ideally you want to drink it fresh and get that fresh hop flavor, but they can last like 6 months without a problem.
Okay.
So most of our beers, have been, some of our, we've got some beers have been sitting here for a while. And we've got some new ones in the tanks.
But have you stopped producing right now?
So, no,
sure, go ahead.
One second.
I'd be terrified if I had all that stuff moving right now. Well, that's just it. That's one of my next questions is so you're making all of this beer, but there's nobody coming to your door. So what do you do with it? Do you drink it all yourself?
Because Gweilo will come and help you if you need anybody to drink it.
Dan, I can be there tomorrow.
I see. It was a loaded question.
As a Canadian, I have the ability to be there basically tomorrow to help you drink all your beer.
This is the generosity of Canadians that we're famous.
Exactly. I'm just thinking about you, man.
Take one for the team.
Exactly.
And do you have food there as well at your
Yeah, we do. We've got a kitchen here, but now that we're opening for delivery, we're not opening the kitchen. I don't think anybody's going to order out. I mean, we've been cooking at home also, and most people, they don't want to order food from outside right now. Everybody's kind of cooking at home. So it doesn't make sense for us to reopen the kitchen, but we do have a kitchen.
Are you buying your food from the wet market?
What's that?
What type of food do you
from the wet market?
sorry.
All 100% wild animals.
No, seriously, are you buying your food from
that's
because when I'm in Nanning, we only buy food from wet markets. We don't buy.
So we've got suppliers. So suppliers, they'll probably get it from wherever the places are that the wet markets get them from beforehand, before it even arrives in the wet market. And we have to place our order the day before, and they deliver it in the morning. So they're big food suppliers. So not really wet markets. We don't have somebody going out. Unless we're creating a new dish.
Yeah, just something interesting. I've had, in all the time I've been in China, I've had less food poisoning than when I was in the UK. And I put it down to that. When Chinese people cook food, one, they slice the meat generally pretty thin before they cook it. There's not many places in China that cook great big like roast joints of meat. And also, you look at the temperature they cook a lot of stuff at. They get those gas ring in the UK, you can turn it from low to medium to high. Here, it's like either on or off, isn't it? It's like a jet engine under the wok. So when that food goes into a wok, it is seriously seared. And I think that goes a long way to killing a lot of bacteria in the meat.
That's actually diesel. What they're hitting that sucker with. No, seriously. I know lots of cooks. I used to do immigration for a lot of cooks going into Canada. That's freaking powerhouse diesel shit. My God.
So, are you concerned, Daniel, when you're about to reopen here? I mean, are you going to lose any staff, or is it going to be hard?
It's not like staff can find a job easily anywhere else right now. So we've got them on retainer right now. We're still paying them according to the law, and that's not a concern because it's not like people can find a job anywhere else right now. Everywhere's kind of in the same boat right now.
I was listening to to one of the economic ministers in China today, and he was basically saying, "Look, we're gonna flood the market with money." Now, I don't know what that means. I mean, free money is good, but even loans at very low interest rates and even flexibility, it's almost like asking somebody to double down.
Well, I think China financially have a lot in reserve. You just look at their foreign reserves of American dollars.
Oh, the government,
they've got so much money they can throw at it if they need to.
There's something else that's going on, and I mean, Alex, if you're into money markets, if you've looked at some of the speculation about what China's doing with their money in terms of slowly moving towards potentially all of a sudden dropping a bombshell in terms of how much gold reserves they have, and then changing the renminbi into a gold reserve currency. There's a lot of really smart people talking about this. I've got a friend here who's talking about it, but there's also a guy on YouTube called Mark Moss, and he's a Bitcoin guy. He's really into Bitcoin, but he did this analysis on what he thinks China is doing with their currency, and it's I think they've got a few tricks up their sleeve.
Yeah, what I mean about the government's one thing, but I mean, how do you filter down the money to people like you to keep the lights on and keep the staff paid? That's what I'm getting at.
It's going to be difficult. I mean, so for me here, I mean, we're if the landlord doesn't give us any concessions, obviously we still have to pay our staff. I'm gonna have to infuse the company with some more cash. Like it's just it's not. And there's a lot of people. If you imagine huge kind of franchises or companies that have multiple locations, it's going to be really, really hard to recover from this.
Sure.
I mean, we're gonna see. I think we're gonna see a lot of people go out of business.
Like I said, this is worse than 9/11, and people don't realize. I mean, you're seeing sensational headlines. Japan has now closed all its schools until the 2nd of March. You've got Saudi Arabia barring pilgrims from the Mecca. I mean, it's just you basically you've said everybody go home, watch Netflix, and talk to us next quarter. And
I think it's going to take China a long time to get back to normal, because I think even when it's free, people are going to be nervous about going back to restaurants. And I think Daniel made an excellent point in his video today about now that they're still letting flights come in. So that the situation is getting better in China, but getting worse everywhere else around the world. So what's the situation like if people are flying into China? Are they going to bring it back in? You know, it only takes one stupid person to set the whole thing off again. I mean, personally, I'm one of the sort of people who are a little bit higher risk. I'm asthmatic and I've got a dodgy kidney, right? I personally feel safer here in Shenzhen than I think I would be in most Western countries now, because I've seen the action the Chinese government take, and I'm pretty convinced there's pretty much no other Western government that could act as. You just look at the situation, right? I did in my video today, right, some research. Ontario in Canada have conducted more tests than the whole of the USA. Up until, I think, the 26th of February, the USA had conducted 425 tests. The UK has already done 7,000 with a fraction of the population. You know, the USA, and apparently some people are commenting, oh, it costs like $3,000 to have a test in the US.
Yeah, of
and
course.
I'm thinking, personally now, you'd be at more risk going to some of those Western countries than staying here in China. That's my thought.
That's basically what we're saying. Is I say, well, okay, do we go back to Canada, or do we go back to Nanning? You know, after it's all said and done, okay, she's getting warmer in Nanning. It's still cold in Canada, on Vancouver Island. So when we come back from Kuala Lumpur and Bali or whatever we do, we go back to Bangkok or to Alex's place and whatever. So what is our end game is, damn, you know, maybe we won't go back to Canada. Maybe we'll just go back to Nanning where we started, because I think that the Chinese people have it more under control.
Definitely,
the Western people could ever do. You know what I mean?
In the UK, they have such. I think I looked at the latest figures. We have something like a 97% sort of rate of hospital beds already taken.
Yeah,
we
most
have
countries, yeah.
We have like virtually no capacity whatsoever, and they've already said in the UK, if this kicks off, people are just going to have to stay at home, basically. You know, because we won't have room in the hospitals. That's the bottom line.
Well, and one of the things that just shakes my ass is the only reason that we're going back to Canada is because Wei Fang has reconstructive surgery on her chest because she had cancer. Okay, so July or August, and they sort of zero in on a couple of months when they do this. Okay, so we're going back for this in a time like this where the hospitals could be full of these coronavirus people. I don't think I want to put my wife in there. And as a Canadian, because we have free healthcare and all this other stuff, because we pay our taxes, we can put that off for an indefinite time period.
Sure, yeah.
So maybe next summer isn't the best time to do something like that. So maybe going back to Nanning is the best scenario for us. You know what I mean?
You know, my live stream yesterday, I was on this live stream, this American live stream. It's kind of like a conservative live stream. I got absolutely pretty much hammered by everybody in the chat forum, and even one of the guests when they said to me, we need to shut the borders of the United States. And I said, okay, well, you know.
They should shut the borders of the United States. Because nobody likes Americans. Leave them down there. Their beer is shit. I'm just saying.
Okay, so on this live stream when I was chatting to this conservative group of people, you know, and most of the stuff we agreed on, but when it came around to this coronavirus, they said, well, we need to close the borders and we need to shut down everything, and we need to do it with China. I said, well, you've pretty much done that to China. I said, is Iran on the list? Well, yeah. I said, is your land border with the United States and Mexico closed? Well, yeah, it's closed. I said, so nobody's getting across. Not one person's getting across. Well, maybe there is. And how about Canada? Is there people coming across from Canada? And they said, well, we need to fully close the border. I said, so every time something like this comes up, whether it's swine flu, H1N1, bird flu, SARS, MERS, all these things, the initial reaction is to blow up the economy, shut everything down. That's their solution. And I said, you can't do that. Oh, yes, we can. We've been through a lot, and we can be strong as a nation to get through it. And their conclusion was, we can stock up on durable goods and consumables, and we can weather the storm. And this is the mentality of most of the people when it comes to, I'm going to say it's the anti-China. Let's close the mothership. Let's take it up so nobody is allowed on the mothership, and we'll survive. And this is not, that's not a solution, but it's crazy how the world feels that is the answer to, playing Little House on the Prairie, where we'll build a bonfire and we'll eat vegetables that we grew over the summer to survive. This is not sustainable. And what I'm saying is, this is going to completely unravel. I think the Chinese are going to be able to weather this one, but this is going to unravel the American economy. And I started watching it last Wednesday, 3 weeks ago, when the market was still going up. I was starting to sell certain type of insurances and stuff on the index, betting against the American market. We're saying, you know what, this is not, what am I missing that the rest of the financial market was doing a week and a half ago, going up?
Sure.
And the average person says, oh, we're fine. We don't need, we got everything. Our store shelves are full.
They don't realize how reliant on the Chinese, on China they are. They don't realize that, it's not only finished goods that come from it, it's huge amounts of components. I mean, one thing, Jaguar Land Rover in the UK, they're going to have to stop production the next 4 or 5 days because they ain't getting parts.
John Deere as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Toyota.
Millions of companies all around the world who heavily rely on China because years ago they fell over themselves to come and get the cheap labor to get the
from
parts.
China to make a transmission for a Toyota. You know what I mean? Shit like this.
What's even crazier is that you try to say, they say, well, it's good because now it's the time for Americans to, bring the manufacturer. I'm not just talking America,
but the supply chains.
It's not the supply chain, but I'll give you one just basic example, and this should pretty much say it all. If you were to open up, let's say, a manufacturing, and I'm not talking an assembly plant, which most people think is manufacturing. Assembly plant I look at is somebody ordering brakes, steering wheels, and parts from China, and basically building a Lego car, but we'll call that U.S. manufacturing. If any person in this panel wanted to open up a flat screen, let's see, a LED screen company in the U.S., you would go there and you would say, okay, you would try to open up this manufacturing plant. Okay, so you get the plant open. Now, where are you going to get your components from? Probably China, unless you have the intellectual property. Is somebody going to risk $1 billion to try open up, a plasma screen plant that then will be walked over by the United Auto Workers or some union that will come in there and just crush the bottom line, and then it's over? And I just don't get that people don't quite calculate that into their equations. They seem to think that this manufacturing is going to be replaced overnight. And I actually don't think it's ever going to be replaced.
It's not. It's never going to happen. Only for very specialist sort of high-end stuff. But for the general consumer goods, it's never going to happen in a million years.
Do you think there's going to be, guys, and this is for the whole panel and everybody to kind of think about it, and it's another question I wanted to ask, is, the businesses rely on the domestic market, of course. When you got 1.3 to 1.4 billion people, that's kind of good to have the domestic market. But two parts of this question. One is the international tourist and traveler to China, are they gone? And number two is, when you reboot this market, is it the Chinese are going to travel less and become unified and travel within and spend money? Which That's kind of like a two-part question.
And Chinese are going to go out and do whatever the fuck they want because they're Chinese. They
I
want to
don't
see
think
the
it'll
rest.
stop them from traveling.
They want to see the rest of the world.
Yeah,
And that's the way it is.
they'll travel. They
don't
love
care.
going abroad.
Yeah. And they got lots of bucks in their jeans, boy. I tell
What
you.
about what about the international market then? Is it dead on arrival then, basically?
I
in
think
terms of
that
tourism, or
Yeah, tourism.
I mean, I don't even know what is does tourism really make up a huge percentage of the Chinese kind of domestic
I
economy?
don't think it does.
No,
I don't think it has
China
so much
makes
to do with
China
the
makes a
internal,
lot
but the
of
external.
China makes a lot of the economy for foreign markets, especially because a lot of the Chinese who travel abroad are the big spenders when they go to like America, Canada, Europe. They spend a lot of money. I think those countries will suffer a lot if the Chinese tourism drops a lot. But I think it will rebound pretty quickly. It did after SARS.
I think what's going to happen is
now.
probably what we're going to see is China will probably have some sort of a campaign to get everybody to kind of do whatever they've got to do in terms of, I don't know how it will, whether it's just as basic as spending in the local economy or something like that. I'm sure that they're going to do something to kind of get people to rally together to kind of fix this, and that's the benefit you have here with a more kind of a bipartisan society. I don't know how that's going to materialize, but
Daniel, I think you're right on that one because I've already seen it a lot, like the CGTN. They ask us questions and say, well, how can we reboot the tourism into China? What do foreigners think about this particular thing? So yeah, I think that's one of the things that that's on their mind at this point.
You know what I think they'll do? I mean, as crafty and as smart as they are, I think they will. I think that they will go on a blitz, like you said, Daniel, and they will go on a promotion campaign, and they will invite international big names into the country to have one massive celebration and party over an extended period of time to say, hey, look, this person's coming. But my last one is, do you guys think they'll rename Wuhan?
No.
It's a beautiful city. They're going to bounce back, and I think that you're going to have the Chinese people behind whatever efforts are needed to reboot the economy and restart things. I think there's a double whammy here because something really interesting happened with the Hong Kong protests, with the whole situation in Hong Kong. Was
quiet.
No. Actually, in terms of unity in China, I have a lot of friends in China who are either local, they've never left China, or who have studied overseas and worked overseas. And a lot of my friends who get all of their news through VPNs, who are internationally educated Chinese, they always respected Western systems and the way things worked in the West. And after what they saw that happened in Hong Kong, and you guys probably know, I got very vocal in terms of the Hong Kong stuff.
I watched every one of them, Daniel.
Oh, nice. That's what
I flew there as well. I did a report there as well. I flew
You actually got pissed off.
So what happened? Yeah, what happened was that all of these people who respected Western systems, Hong Kong made them re-examine and said, you know what? I'm actually not so sure about this anymore. Mm-hmm. Especially when they considered how good the Hong Kong people were. Not the Hong Kong people. It's not all of the Hong Kong people that are like this, but the ones who were causing a lot of violence and really doing some pretty despicable things, how well they controlled the international narrative and how well they fooled everybody else in terms of what they were doing. And so that was a kind of a turning point for Chinese people. So that was the first thing that really brought people together, and people who weren't necessarily, because there are a lot of Chinese people who are not pro-China. I mean, they've got their own minds, and people don't realize that. Like, I go out to RV meetups, and you get people arguing about the government. Some people who like the government, some people who don't. But after this Hong Kong stuff, people became really unified here. And then this, I think, is going to be a second thing where it really kind of bolsters that even more. And like I said, people are going to do whatever they need to do to contribute to bringing this money back. Yeah.
The thing is that you're sitting in China right now, and Lee, you're sitting in China right now. After all of this shit hit the fan, do you still feel safe?
Absolutely.
In the beginning, I was really worried, and I mean, there was a lot of people who were kind of panicking in the beginning, and they didn't know what was going on. I probably, if I had everything in order, I might have left for Canada. I might have left for Canada during the early stages. Our youngest, 10 months old or 11 months old, I'm going to get in trouble for not knowing exactly how many months old. But
you're a terrible father.
Yeah, he didn't get his Canadian citizenship yet, or his Canadian passport, so we might have had a little bit of a problem there. I'm sure the consulate still would have helped us. But also my father-in-law, he is staying with us in Shenzhen, and he has a pre-existing lung condition. He doesn't have a Canadian visa or anything like that. And so I was worried about leaving him and stuff like that. So we're like, okay, we'll be really careful and we'll stay here. And now it's slowly moved to a point that even if I had all of it in order, and even my father-in-law had a visa and everything like that, I wouldn't go to Canada.
Would you leave?
No, not now. No.
I feel safer here at the moment than
you have
most
asthma.
other places. Yeah,
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. I had childhood asthma, and my third son has asthma, which was quite interesting. We tried to renew the ventilator stuff for the mask that you use at home, and there were a few clinics that I reached out to try to get the medicine. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. So that's the one we do the mask one for him where it vaporizes it. And all the main clinic we usually go to is closed, and I try to go to a new clinic and try to just buy it without going. And they were asking all kinds of questions, like if you want anything to do with breathing medications right now, even the private,
are you sick?
They start questioning you big time, and that shows you how. I'm not. That wasn't for me. For my third son. My third son has a little bit of asthma, and it shows you how careful they are. They've got every bit in alert here to find anybody, because some people might just say, "Okay, I'm not going to go. I'm going to stay at home," and that's when it gets risky to kind of spread it to everybody, especially if they're going out and buying their groceries every day.
Well, I went yesterday from here in Longgang to Shenzhen Bay. And every metro you get on, when you change, you have to scan a code inside the carriage. And you know the security guys they have on, they walk around and make sure you scanned it. They watch for people getting on, you scan it, then you change at the station, you scan it on the next one. You can't travel on the metro without the barcode. You can't buy normal tickets anymore. You have
it's same
to
for driving. If you drive into your garden, you have to show the security guard that you've already downloaded that app. And that also makes an interesting realization, because you would think, because the purpose of this is to actually track where people are going.
Absolutely,
and figure out if eventually you were exposed to a confirmed patient. They can also let you know. They can also send you a message and say, hey, listen, yesterday at 4 p.m. you were here and you were standing beside somebody who has a confirmed case of coronavirus. Maybe you got to be careful or come in and get checked out. Yeah. And what the interesting thing that makes you realize is most people think that the government here can track you enough where you wouldn't need to do that to begin with. And this is actually
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and this is actually proving. And there were even some articles where they said that they were asking some of the private companies here to share the data, and they were reluctant to share it with the government.
That's right.
Okay, just make your own app and make people download it, which is basically the same as we have in the West. Like with Facebook, when you download apps and stuff like that, and you give it permissions.
They
have to go through all of the same steps to track us as much as they needed to track us for this. And that makes it an interesting realization also. So.
I've been drinking too much beer. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Cheers, guys.
All right, so I think we'll in terms of the recording, we wrap it up at this point, guys. And so for all of our subscribers, like I said, give us some feedback. Let us know, do you want to see the live stream? When do you want to see the live stream, and the kinds of things we want to you'd like us to cover? And we'll
maybe drop some comments of the sort of subjects you'd like us to approach.
Yeah. And the other one is for all my viewers that are watching this, if you're not familiar with that channel there, and that channel over there, just hit their subscribe button so that you guys get a full idea of what's going on. And maybe back over to you, Gweilo. You got anything you want to say to everybody before we head out?
Absolutely.
All right. So from me and the panel and everybody, you guys have a great time, and we look forward next time coming to you live on all our channels.
As always, take care.
Cheers.
Take care.